Alright, you thirsty bastards, let's get you some Braum. Braum is here, and so is Freljord. Now, observe Braum's splash art. Here, I am punching troll in face. Ha! Fully silly fellow trying to eat Poro. Ha! Cannot have that. So, punch in face, deal with troll, all is happy. Then, we go out for dinner. Anyway, I can't do that voice for too long because it ruins my throat. But there you go. There's your Braum impression for the day. So this is a lovely bit of art, honestly. In terms of the dynamism, in terms of the, like, the perspective of the punch, like, there's this curvature to Braum's arm as he lays this troll or Yeti or whatever it is he's punching out. Like, you get that sense of boom. Like, there's a good sense of punch and power. And I love that Braum is also like, guys, nice try, my friend, but Braum is faster. I like that there's that sense of him, like, he's not really angry. He's not trying to punch this guy because he's mean or because he doesn't like him. But just because, like, this guy needs to calm down. He needs to sit down, chill out, stop being a dick. And if a punch is what's going to do that, then Braum is definitely going to be the guy to do the punching. And I've always liked Braum's character design. Like, I like his big nose. I like his big fat jaw. I like his 5 o'clock shadow. I like his mustache. Like, I like that there's so much personality to him. That there's so much character to his face. Like, there's so much there. Yeah, that's a guy who lives on a frozen mountain and punches Yetis for fun. Sure, that's the kind of guy that is. That makes perfect sense to me. So yeah, the framing is the Yeti itself, like, or the troll or whatever it is he's punching. You can kind of see how its arms and its hair form this frame around Braum himself. And again, much like in the Demacian artwork, here we see Braum especially highlighted by sunlight while everything else is shaded out. And what I especially like is the continuity, because here, Braum has punched a Yeti in the face, but he's laughing about it. Like, he's good-natured. It's perfectly fine. It's fun. And here the Yeti is on the ground, and Braum is offering to help the Yeti up. It is not Cass, my good friend Cass. It is not the perspective of someone, Cass, who has just given Braum a blowjob, Cass. It's not that, Cass. It's someone who's been punched by Braum who's lying down, Cass. It's not a post-Cass blowjob, Cass perspective, Cass. Just making that clear to you, Cass. Okay, Cass? Good, Cass. God damn it. I can never unthink that. Ugh. God damn it, Cass. Anyway, progression. Good progression in the storyline of the artwork. Also because, like, here, everything is a little bit blue, and a little bit kind of dour in terms of the color scheme. Everything is a little bit downplayed because we're looking at the Freljord and we're looking at the ice and the snow and the yada yada. But here, because the Yeti, which has been punched in the face, is lying on its back and looking up at the sky, we get this bright blue sunlight where Braum gets to be outlined almost as kind of an angelic friend offering him a hand to get back up. Like, was good match, my friend. And, like, I really like the perspective on that. I like how the light kind of lights up Braum's entire skin. Like, you get that translucency effect we talked about earlier. That really sells him as something warm and soft and friendly. Not this angry, want to kill you murder champion or anything. Just like a friendly guy. Mighty Poro is also very good. Like, let's look at this. The eye patch to show that he's really tough. You people are so thirsty for Braum, honestly. I mean, I support you. I support you fully, but honestly. Anyway, Ashe. Like, yeah, I mean, we could do all my complaints about her character design being, this is not how you dress when you live in a place that looks like this. Even if you are impervious to the cold, you still dress in the same clothes as everybody else because that's what's available! And you're the leader of your people, you're not a fashion model, you're supposed to be an exemplar of their culture. Anyway, we could do all that again, but I'm not gonna do all that again because I'm right and you know I'm right and we don't need to rehash that whole argument and Riot needs to change her character design already. Anyway, lovely bit of composition here. We have the shard of rock that she's standing on, elevating her, like she's in a position of power. Once again, Ashe is, after all, a queen and a war mother. So that she's out here surveying her, like, her domain, her lands, out here protecting her Avarosan people from anything that might attack them from any direction. I like the little rainbow over here, by the way. And we get the framing again, like where the mountains are framing Ashe. Like they're sort of forming the area of her domain is like she's looking through the sky. She's looking at like these high lofted visionary ideas of high above. But then also, look at the villages. Ashe is also in shadow. Like, she's not lit up by the sun either. The sun and all the light and all the warmth falls on the villages on the land below, which makes the land kind of an equal character to Ashe herself, which again, as our environmental storytelling, is really good, as the story of this picture is that she is watching over this. And both of these things are characters in the story of the image. Then we have Ashe with a somewhat more sensible character design, because now she's wearing a fur cloak, like she lives in a place where fur cloaks are something you wear or something. What a crazy idea, right? Wow. And she's wearing leggings rather than having bare thighs. Wow. That's almost a smart thing. I'm gonna be salty about this till the day I die, aren't I? But here we also see her in a different light. Like, here, Ashe is a leader and a war mother, and but she's also isolated. She's apart from her people. She's apart from the people that she's protecting. She's alone, lonely, literally lonely, alone, separated from them by mountains, standing on top in this top left corner of the screen. But here, much more, she's among them. She's supported by them. She's leading them from their perspective, from ground level. She's with them rather than being above them, which I quite like as a progression of the character, like Ashe, as she grows into her role as a leader, also coming to accept, like, the support of her people, the help of her people, rather than trying to take it all on her own shoulders. Like, that's a sensible story progression for her. And by the way, remember this guy and this guy, because they're going to come back later, which you will already know if you watch Nick Crit's video. I think he just put out the Piltover and Sawn one. So once you're done here, you could go and watch that one if you want more context on some of those cards. But yeah, lovely bit. Like, the light here is doing all the work of highlighting Ashe, especially. And then you can see, like, the characters that are close to her, this shaman and this archer guy, they're also highlighted, but less so. Like, they're slightly less highlighted, which sort of brings them a little bit more back in focus. They're still there, like, they're still with her in her plane, but they're not the frontmost, foremost. And of course, Ashe is also just the one who's most dominant in the picture. Like, she's the one who's literally the largest figure in the entire picture. So that's just sensible. And I like the northern lights hanging out up there. That's a lovely detail. Ooh, and I remember this is scary as hell. Like, this is we don't talk a lot about, like, spell effects, but this is scary as hell. Like, you can just see the light slow, like the light of warmth just draining out of the hands of this poor guy. Like, that's, ooh, that's an Arctic nightmare, dude. That's scary as heck. So, Anivia. I think here she's sitting somewhere near the Howling Abyss, actually. Not a lot to talk about with her, really. Like, she's a bird, and she looks like Anivia, a bird made of ice. She's framed, like, there's some colors. Like, I do like the glow that she has. Like, you kind of like she's almost, you almost get this kind of 80s fantasy art vibe from all the airbrush glow that she's got going on. I think that's a good look for her. I think that works for her. And it's the same thing here. Like, here you get more of a sense of scale of how big Anivia is really supposed to be. Couldn't this be her new splash art, by the way? Just saying. Like, where you can see these, I think these are, like, Frostguard soldiers. I think Nick Crit certainly theorized that they were being chased off by her. And you can just see how incredibly large this Cryo Phoenix is compared to literally everything else in the environment. And how terrifying her power can be. And I like the blue of Anivia here being contrasted with, like, that red, that blood red sky up above her. Like, that's a nice contrast. Again, giving you that slightly surrealist fantasy art feel. By the way, I'm gonna make a weird noise again. The lovely thing about back problems is that you keep having to change your position in order to put strain on different muscles. And then there's Anivia, which, again, look at the scale of that. That's some egg, isn't it? And there's the tower, by the way, that she was sitting on before. So they managed to kill her-ish, But then it's like, oh, okay, I guess we have to deal with the egg now, and they can't, because it's the size of a building! Very large egg. Very large bird. Then we have Tryndamere here, about to go Super Saiyan 4, I think, looking at the color of the aura. He's about to go Super Saiyan 4, I think, yeah. Surrounded by, again, what looks like Frostguard soldiers and enslaved Yetis. And again, the framing here is immaculate. Like, this is really good framing. You can see the soldier in front of him, as well as the spears surrounding him, and everything in the picture points towards him, basically. Like, all the arrows, all the spears, all the swords, everything points at Tryndamere, which makes him completely the center of the picture. And again, also the lighting. Like, again, Tryndamere has lighting on him, he has highlights, he has brightness, and everyone else is in shadow. And then they make him mad. Very, very mad indeed. He has an arrow through his heart there, I believe, which he doesn't seem to be that interested in or care about at all. Now, this one, it's like fine. Like, it's okay. It does the job. It tells the story that it has to tell. I like the Yeti being knocked over there behind him, like completely getting bodied by this crazy barbarian man. But Tryndamere's pose is like, that feels too restrained. Like, the whole idea of him being in that state is that he's an unrestrained, savage madman who kills everything everywhere around him. But this is like, he's just swinging his sword, though. Like, it's just, woo! It's a very controlled, very sensible swing, where I would be looking for, like, some swings that are just wildly out of control, where the sword is just kind of flying everywhere. That would kind of be what I was looking for in a Berserk Tryndamere, and I don't really get the sense of Berserk from this. Like, I don't really get the sense of a madman flailing wildly at enemies all around him. I get more of a sense of a warrior fighting sensibly, which is not really the thing that he's supposed to be doing, unless they're changing him, of course. And then there's this guy. This lovely little thing who's lonely. And I just want to pick him up and hug him and take him home. Anyway, Lonely Poro. This is one of those storytelling pictures. You've probably seen this on Twitter already. We have the Lonely Poro, and then he can turn into... Can we even see that here? No, I don't think we can. Give me a second, I'll pull it up. There he is. Lonely Poro, when you play him on the field, he summons one other Poro into your hand that you can then play. And when you do that, he turns from Lonely Poro into Jubilant Poro, which is this guy. So he has a happy ending to his story, don't worry, and it has another chapter after that also. But I don't think you can see the Jubilant Poro in the actual gameplay footage, so, eh. Let's just get the game back on screen. You can hook it faster than that, thank you. But yeah, this is one of those storytelling pictures. As a composition, again, you can see how the triangle formed by the rock pile that he's sitting on forms, like, it gives him a space, it gives him a frame to exist inside of the picture, it gives him a compositional anchor, so that he's the thing that our eyes are immediately drawn to. Also, the mountains, like, with the V shape behind him, and the snowdrifts behind him here, do the job as well of drawing your eye to him as the centerpiece of the image. So, Omen Hawk, one of my favorite cards from the Freljord, actually. Not for the art, but just because it gives +1/+1 to the next 2 minions in your deck that you draw. Like, that's just wonderful. Wonderful value for 1 mana. Now, the Omen Hawk is interesting. Not so much as a composition, but as a piece of lore, because I feel like what we're supposed to get from this is that this is the hawk that Ashe summons when she uses her E. Sorta, I think? What trick, like, 3 times our Reavers reached Avarosan gates and 3 times they were met with ready bows. What trickery warns them of our attacks? And that then would be the bow, like the frickin' Omen Hawk that Ashe sends out to scout for her. I think that's the lore of it anyway. Again, as a composition, the Omen Hawk has all the saturated colors. It's very much like, it's in front and center of the picture. It's glowing. And it doesn't really have much of a framing, except the frame that it creates for itself with this triangular shape of the wings, like cutting across the picture. But what I really like is like these cheering Avarosans down on the ground going, yeah, Omen Hawk, woo! It's like it's a local celebrity that they just saw. And I also really like the environmental details of the Freljord environment itself. Like, there's so many good little things, like the trees here that are kind of fallen over, presumably from a winter storm or something. Like the fact that so many of the trees have lost their needles on the uppermost parts of the tree, which is a pretty common thing in, like, frigid needle forests, but something that oftentimes you don't see in artwork. And yeah, just like lovely. There's tons of snow hanging out on the branches. Just quite good. I like it. I also like this girl. Like, this poor girl. She's an unscarred Reaver. And with the Reavers, the thing is, like, if you haven't been in battle and you haven't been injured, then you're unscarred. Like, you're not considered an adult or a full person yet, kinda. And she's, like, that inexperience, that youth and uncertainty is being, like, it's being portrayed in a rather heartbreaking way here, because, like, she doesn't look like she especially wants to fight. She also doesn't look like she's especially capable of fighting with that thing. So she's, like, kind of a, I wish there was a story progression for her so that we know that she's not, you know, killed. But yeah, poor girl. But again, lots of character, like lots of appeal. You can see the uncertainty and the fear in her face as she's kind of looking over her shoulder towards the battle that everyone else is rushing towards. You can see how everything else, like everyone around her, is moving past her, moving faster than her. Like with more speed and grace and ability to us. You can sense that feeling of being left behind that she's got, where she wants to prove herself as an adult, but she's also, you know, rightfully terrified of fighting in a battle. And, like, the literal idea of the weapon being too heavy for her to handle. Like, the burden is too heavy for her to bear. And also, the rendering on the snow in this picture. I mean, look at it. That is some gorgeous snow rendering. Like, that looks crisp as hell. That looks like you could, like, lean down and eat it. And again, the lighting. The lighting as usual. Everything else is in shadow. She's in light. And that's what highlights her in the picture. Which works. Then we have the Yeti yearling. Like, look at this. Look at this adorable little baby. And also that little Poro. Oh! Like, this is cute. This is adorable. Anyway, the framing, pretty simple. The ice crystals frame the little thing and the Poro itself against the environment, which again is much more drab and like less lighted with the rest of the Yetis. And that works perfectly fine. As a framing device, like this little circle. And also it gives the sense of protection. Like, it gives them a sense that they are protected from the outside world because they're surrounded by barriers on all sides. So it really sells that feeling of comfort and warmth that these two things have together as they're lying there on the cold ice, protected by their fur. And then we have what this guy is going to look like when he grows up. which is somewhat less adorable. Somewhat less cuddly. I hope Poros don't look like that when they grow up. But yeah, this guy is angry. Once again, you can kind of see how there's a little bit there's a bit of a space. Like, I should probably stop saying frame because that's kind of not really what it is. But there's like a space compositionally created here by like the space between his hands that kind of outlines his face. And I like the idea of the hands just kind of reaching towards you, like really reaching towards you into the screen, making this thing absolutely fucking terrifying to look at. And I also like the frozen snot coming out of his nostrils. That's a good detail. I don't like his teeth because they scare me. Ooh, also, once again, notice how much less work has gone into rendering the fine detail on like the fur that isn't directly in the foreground, that like all of the stuff that isn't directly in front of you to be looked at, because again, that stuff isn't as important. It just isn't. You don't have to spend so much time on it. And here again, here's actually something interesting, because here we do have a frame, like a completely clear-cut frame within the picture that frames the guy, which is the window that he's looking out of this Avarosan tower. And again, everyone else in the fucking Freljord wears cold weather clothes. Why don't the champions? But we have a different situation with the lighting, because the lighting isn't falling on his face. It's not highlighting his eyes or his face. It's highlighting that authoritative hand, like that watchful, guarding hand on the railing of the building. And if this was a Renaissance painting of any kind, then the analysis of that would be, yeah, it's highlighting his ability to guard. It's highlighting his role as a guardian rather than highlighting the person as a man. I haven't had a break for lunch, no, but I have a couple of 5-minute breaks to stuff some pizza into my face. And run some tea down my throat so that it doesn't collapse on itself. But yeah, I really like the use of light here. Like, I really like that the light doesn't really reach him, but it just highlights his position as a guard and his attitude towards, like, this is not a restful position. He's not resting. He's not comfortable. He's not sitting down. He's not leaning back. He's standing there, like, alert with a hand on his post, looking out over the area that he's supposed to guard. Skyen, don't ruin yourself. Don't worry. Like, as soon as we're done with this, I'm not doing anything else for the rest of the day. I'll be all right. Don't you worry. So this is just like a nice composition. It's not that interesting as a thing, like, because nothing happens in it, really. But as a little bit of a character observational piece, it's very good. Then we have this guy, a feral mystic. Basically, this is one of the shamans who live in the Freljord who, like, communicate with animal spirits of various kinds, and this guy then is being overtaken by an animal spirit. Like, he has gone too far into the animal world, and now he can't get back out. I don't think it's Volibear possessing him, necessarily. This looks more like a wolf snout than a bear snout to me. But it's the kind of thing that happens to you if the Volibear gets a hold of you, is that it transforms you, it really melts your shape into something terrible. Ah, tea. But yeah, this is a man turning into a furry. Like, he saw too much smutty art on Twitter, and now the transformation is inevitable. Anyway, in terms of the composition here, there's some interesting stuff going on with swirling motions. You can kind of see how this spirit energy is kind of swirling around him, and that creates a kind of spiraling pattern in the image that draws our eyes inwards towards, not towards his face, interestingly, but towards this glowing wound almost on his stomach, like this scar that almost seems to be opening up, where the power seems to be concentrating. And that follows the motion of his body. You can see how his line of action is also, he's almost like curling into a ball like Sonic the Hedgehog. Oh shit, he actually kind of does look like a werehog Sonic, doesn't he? He looks like Sonic the Hedgehog turning into a werehog a little bit. Well, I guess we found the official announcement of how Sonic the Hedgehog is going to look in the movie now. Anyway, like that has affinity and continuity with the motion of his body, like that hunching over kind of circular motion that he's got going on there. So that all works really well to draw the eye into what's going on in the middle of the picture. And I quite like that. Then we have this one. Again, this is just like a really nice action shot. It feels like something out of Age of Ultron, like that shot in the opening of Age of Ultron, where all the Avengers are like leaping towards the Hydra soldiers and doing a thing. It feels a little bit like one of those shots with Hawkeye, but this is just a really good action shot. Like, you can see arrows are already flying through the air, axes are being thrown the other way. This guy's leaping into action to defend his village, and I really like that he's like, basically, he's like vaulting over this fence and this stuff that's kind of lying around there, and he's almost like horizontal in the air as he does so, like, because he's in so much of a hurry, and he's in so much motion that he's like doing a complete flip. And that's probably not physically possible in reality, but as an action shot, it works really, really well. And I also like, again, the cape. You can kind of see how the lines of the image kind of lead us subtly towards him. You can see the line of the rooftop there kind of guiding us a little bit that way, and the line of the rooftop here going, like, leading into his cloak, which guides us to his face and then guides us to the center. And you can see how the rooftops of the village create this space for him to occupy right here up in the top right of the image. And then, of course, there's a giant glowing arrow that he's about to fire, which also does a really good job of drawing the eye. And that straight line from the arrow back to the face, again, focusing us on the character. It's like, compositionally, this is just really well done. There's not a lot of magic to it. It's just really well done and really well rendered. Like, I really like the rendering on his chest and his shoulder piece, especially. That little streak of light right there, that little streak of light across it, that just gives so much pop. Then we have the stalking wolf and the snow hare. Needless to say, I'm rooting for the bunny to get away, but I like the contrast between these two characters. The bunny, all white, blue eyes, and it's moving upwards out of the picture. Then the wolf, red eyes, all dark gray and almost black, and it's moving sort of downwards into the picture. So you get this sort of, not spiral, but this swooping curve of their motion that works really well. Like as a compositional guide to lead your eye, because it leads you naturally from the rabbit to the wolf, from the wolf to the rabbit. And yeah, just the snow rendering, again, like whoever is doing the snow in some of these pictures is absolutely brilliant at it. Snow is really difficult because it's both chunky and it's made of tiny little powdery crystals, and you kind of have to manage the balance between the two, and that's kind of really difficult to do. But whoever's doing this is brilliant at it. I also like that you can see the dead leaves kind of lying around in this unfrozen water, like this water that's, so it kind of feels like you're maybe right at the cusp of spring, like the snow is slowly starting to melt. And the hare is coming out of hibernation or whatever, and that's when the wolves are starting to strike. Then we have the Starlit Seer. Now, remember those big owl stones, because I think they might come up again a bit later. But I really like the color trick of having the owl's eyes glow yellow, because owls do have like bright yellow eyes that reflect a lot of light because they're big and they're made to take in a lot of light. But then to have him have the same eyes, because that cements the connection between them, like that he sees through its eyes, or that he's possessing it, or that they have some kind of spiritual connection. Also, this guy, he appears in the background of Ashe's level 2, right over here. So it's nice to see that character recur across multiple cards. Anyway, the Weirding Stones, look at these. These seem like rather similar stones. Not the same exactly, but they seem like similar stones to the ones that he's standing on. Like these mystical standing stones that are scattered around the Freljord that have some kind of magic power of some sort. And again, you can see the framing. You can see how the stones and the forest kind of create this little space for him, where the moon can be his light source, really highlighting the kind of creepy expression that he's got going on. Like, he doesn't look fully human, does he? He looks a little bit otherworldly, a little bit wrong. And that twist of the head is really good, because that's such an owl, that's such a bird affectation, almost as though he's being affected by being too much in contact with birds, that it's kind of affecting his body language, and that kind of acting is really good. Yeah, there aren't really that much to talk about. Like, it's just light here draws the eye, and then these shapes create a compositional element, and then, yeah. Nothing there we haven't talked about 1,000 times already. Then we have this guy. Again, he was present in Ashe's level 2 concept art. He's one of the Avarosans that is following her. And again, we've seen characters hiding from other characters a couple of times now. We've seen Lux hiding from the Mage Seeker. We've seen the Hapless Noble hiding from Thresh. And in every case, they're using the same compositional trick, which is to have, like, a thing splitting the character who's hiding from whatever he's hiding from. And in this case, rather than hiding from something that's hunting the character, like, he's not being hunted, he's doing the hunting. But it works exactly the same. Like, it's a great compositional little trick to create a space, a box in your image where, like, if you need them to communicate visually that they are hidden from someone else, do that. And it works wonders, as you can see. And then we have this box over here, like with the other half of the tree trunk, where we can actually see the boars. We can see the targets that he's after. And that's the brilliant thing about this, is that it creates that oppositional composition where we have one person hidden here, and then we have whatever that person is up against hidden over here. And the storytelling there becomes really clear and easy to understand. Ugh, excuse me. I had to sneeze. Ugh. Do I have to sneeze again? No, I don't want to. Stop. Ugh. Okay. So this guy, Avarosan Trapper. I quite like this. Like, I quite like the... Because you can see... Because he's like this serious bearded, like, bear dude, like, they're just setting up his trap, and I'm a brave hunter. I'm doing brave trapping things. Yes, I'm competent. I'm the master of my environment. And
this guy? Like, just lurking behind the legs like, hey, dude, how you doing? I'm just coming in here to assert that you're not the top of the food chain. Hello!
Which I think that works really well. Like, that's just a lovely comic, oppositional... Like, it's a lovely comic opposite where this guy is all serious and, yes, I am the brave hunter. And there's the big Yeti just about to prove him so wrong. So very wrong. What I especially like about the Yeti is that it's easy to miss it. Like, it's easy to miss the Yeti when you first see the picture because it kind of blends into, like, the shape of the tree behind him and kind of the coloration of the background. And then you see it and it's like, oh no. Oh, well, oh dear, sorry about that. And that's when the enraged Yeti comes back into play. We've already seen him before. So anyway, again, obviously these are boyfriends that are running an inn somewhere called the Tipsy Owl. But the thing that you should pay attention to first is this hand reaching out for this lady here. That's gonna come back later. If you've seen the Necrit video, you already know where this is going. But this is just you get again, the character design on display in these images is just really solid. Because, like, again, you get the sense that these are two very different people. Like, these are two very different characters. They both have facial hair. They're both, like, a little bit on the stout side, although this guy's clearly bigger. They're both men in, like, their 40s or something like that, late 30s, early 40s. But you see the difference in, like, even though they're both jovial and kind of happy, you see this guy's more like, ha, 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 and this guy's more like, like, that kind of, you get the sense of different personalities, of very different people. And that's what good character design can do, is, like, without saying a word, without having more than a single image to go by, you get the feeling that, oh yeah, no, I can see that they have a dynamic. I can see that there's something going on there. Like, where they play off each other, they bounce off each other. There's an interesting clash of personalities going on. And that's what I like about character design. When it's good, it can really do that. Like, it can really sell a story. Anyway, this guy is clearly the main character along with the owl, because this is the Tipsy Owl, and he's the kindly tavern keeper. This guy's probably more like the barman or something. And again, the lighting is he's inside the frame of this little area, like separated by the pillar there, and the lighting is doing the job of making him the main character, while the guy he's talking to or hearing a joke from is more like he's a secondary character, but he's also way out in front of the image, so we pay attention to him. And then the last thing we pay attention to is probably the lady about to get touched on the shoulder over there. And the mighty Poro, again, we've already seen him, along with Braum. Then we have this hungry bastard, who is a really well-drawn wolf, honestly. Again, I want to draw your attention to the lower effort, like the much less work goes into rendering the fur away from where your eyes are going to be looking. Because again, why spend a million years rendering stuff that no one's really going to be looking at that much? And again, a little bit of, like, you can see the steam or the mist coming out of the wolf's mouth. Also helps draw your attention to the wolf's face right here, and you can also see that little frame being created by the tail and sort of the general environment behind it. Sensible composition, nothing too exceptional. And here's another one for you to thirst over. Get it out of your systems. Just enjoy it. Just get it over with. I'll wait. I'll wait. Yeah, I knew you'd catch up to it. Anyway, a lovely bit of character design study going on here. Each of these men look completely different from each other. And that's, again, something I wish that wasn't so unusual, especially in fantasy art, that characters can look like distinctly different from each other. But it is. Like, this guy has a very different facial construction. Like, he's got a very different kind of face than the young kid over here with a stone axe, who's got a very different face than Scarthane Stefan himself over here, who's got a very, like, he's got these big, broad jaw, who's got a different face than handsome face back here, who's got a different face than little Droopy tagging along with him back at the back right here. And that's, again, good character design allows room for all these different kinds of face constructions, all these different kinds of cheekbones, kinds of cheek constructions, kinds of everything. And lazy character design, anime, doesn't do that. Well, I mean, it's not fair. Anime isn't lazy character design, it's just they have never caught up to the idea that you can have different faces even within a stylized anime aesthetic. And it bothers me every time I see a new anime show come out and it's just like, we're very different characters going on an adventure, and it's just the same face 14 times. Ugh. Anyway, that's not really what we're talking about here, is it? Anyway, Scarthane Stefan is the main character of the piece because, again, the lighting favors him. Like, it's primarily lighting him up, and he's the furthest forward in the picture. Then there's a sneaky Maxstabio in the back down here, who's further forward in the picture, but who's less highlighted by the lighting, and who's also a little bit desaturated compared to his burly companion here. And, of course, Stefan is also riding this large... I don't know what it is, but it's large. Which helps put him in a position of authority and power over the others. And that's, like, again, just good compositional craft, really, to make that work. Like, to make it work that he's part of a group, but also clearly the leader of a group. And then we have these guys. I really like these guys, because they bring something entirely new to the Freljord, something we haven't seen before. These characters are clearly based on mid-Asian nomadic people from the steppes. Particularly, I'm thinking of Kyrgyzstani or Kazakhstani or Mongolian, like the nomadic tribes of the steppe lands in those particular areas. And that's something that always felt like it would be a natural fit for the Freljord, but we've never actually seen that kind of diversity in the Freljord. Like, we've never seen people who are based on, like, the mid-Asian peoples be represented. So it's nice that that's being brought in here. Like, I'm hoping they do something when they bring Shurima in, that they do something similar and actually start doing, like, broader African representation than just big Egypt, which is what Shurima is right now. It's just basically very large Egypt, and I would like to see it bring in more stuff like Nigerian, Rwandan, Kenyan, Zimbabwean, maybe even South African, really. But anyway, lovely bit of compositional work. Again, this is something you'll see in Renaissance paintings of military leaders again, where you have this triangle composition where you can kind of see how low, a little bit higher, a little bit, and then the guy who's in charge, who's at the highest point, then his wingman with the banner to the right, his wise advisor with the, you know, gray facial hair, who's clearly older and more experienced down there, and then, like, the subordinates ranked, like, in progressively lower rank of authority, sort of fanning out behind him in this triangular shape. And that's something that's, like, I've seen in classical artwork multiple times, and it's nice to see that tradition being brought forward into League of Legends and into gaming in general. Something that Hearthstone never really tried to do, I don't think, at least not that I remember. Oh, to be fair, I stopped playing long before they got to whatever the hell their current expansion is. So maybe they've caught up on that, but I don't know. But yeah, lovely composition. And by the way, the composition of the soldiers here in the front mirrors the shape of the mountain in the back, which again, it makes a visual connection between the strength of the mountain and the strength of the group, which again, classic storytelling out of you know, old school classical art. But yeah. Did I see Vilemore? Yes. Yes, we looked at Vilemore. People yelled at me in chat and then I remembered it. And here we get the payoff. This is old Björg. And I don't know if he was named after Björkson, but I kind of hope so. That would be fucking hilarious. But this is the barmaid at the Owl, who's being bothered by an old man screaming about a giant monster. And again, the composition is solid. You can see how the barmaid and then Björk's arms create this space for his ramblings to exist in. Like, not just his face, but his loudness, his shouting. And you can see how him having slammed the door open is kind of blowing the lantern to the side. So it destabilizes the whole space, like he's disturbing the atmosphere, literally disturbing the atmosphere of the place. And I love the contrast between the dark, cold, gray blues out here, and then all the warm, like, reds and browns and yellows dominating the space inside. That's just such a good way to show color contrast, like temperature contrast. And it's just, and also just Björk's face, like with that single tooth and that bug-eyed look where he's not quite looking in the same direction with both eyes. It works really well. It makes him look like a rambling old hobo, which is technically what he is here. And here's a large friend. Hello, large friend. You're very large. I like the colors. Like, I like the rainbow Oh, someone photoshopped the NALCS over the barmaid and the old man saying, "This is the year we win worlds!" Yeah, definitely do that. I'll retweet that, happily. This is just a nice little composition. I love the red colors on the mountains. Like, I love contrasting, like, the white of the snow and the iciness of the plains with, like, red sunset or sunrise colors being painted across the mountainside like that. That's just, mwah, that's just gorgeous. I like the birds flying around here, too. That's a little bit of visual variety. Nothing much to say about it. There's not really much of a character in here. And then, remember the jubilant Poro? How he was lonely before? He's not lonely anymore. He has lots and lots of friends now. He has lots of friends now. It's beautiful. As I said, on stream when I was playing Legends of Runeterra a little bit earlier in the day, if I, like, some rioter on Twitter asked, if you were to live somewhere in Runeterra, like, if you had to go to Runeterra and live there and do some kind of job, what kind of job would it be? Yeah, Poro herder for me, please. I know it's winter and it's cold and things, but no, I'll take it. Look, there's a baby Poro. There's a baby Poro. I will do this for a job for the rest of my life. I will be very happy to do that. And I will grow the largest, burliest upper arms, no matter how big they need to be, so I can carry all of the Poros all at once. Happily. Anyway, look, the lonely Poro has his arm around a little Poro who's sitting with him on the rock up there. Isn't that just the most adorable motherfucking thing? But again, you can see how the Poro herder himself becomes kind of part of the rock pile that the lonely Poro was sitting on, so that compositional element is preserved. And then you also get this plain separation, literally with plains, where you can see this grassy hill that's kind of highlighted with bright colors and like bright saturation, in contrast to the more cool and sort of shaded areas behind it, which gives you this sense of foreground and background that creates a really deep space, which looks lovely. You would be a good armorsmith, no more boot plates. So, Avarosan Hearthguard. Again, lovely composition. We see something of a reverse of, if you remember, we talked about, like, where the heck are they? The Outriders here. How they kind of form a mountain shape, like a wedge shape going from the bottom to the top of the image, right? Because that's their stoic protectors, guardians, calm as a mountain, standing watch over their lands, that kind of thing. Here we get the other thing. Here we get kind of the same triangular formation down, where you can see the leader, the banner bearer, the experienced advisor, and then the rest of the soldiers following behind. But we also get that same triangular formation pointing downwards. Now they're not the mountain. Now they are the avalanche. Now they're thundering down the mountain to fight whatever it is that's in front of them. And that's just a lovely little contrast. And I do like, again, we see more people who seem to be, at least based on like Asian steppes people, or indeed from the mountain ranges of the Himalayas and stuff like that. Like, there's more racial diversity now in the Freljord than there used to be, where it was just Scandinavian Vikings as far as the eye could see. Now there's a little bit more to it than that. Like, there's more disparate influences being drawn in there, which I'm very happy about, because a lot of what the Freljord was lent itself really well to that idea, like the idea of nomads and herders traveling around, following their herds of Elnuks around to the grazing lands that are viable for them. So I find that quite cool. Also, compositionally, again, we talked about like the downwards triangle that's going on here, because they're charging towards you rather than lording over you. And there's also like an interesting spatial division where these three guys are way out in front here. And you can kind of see this plane of rocks kind of cutting them off a little bit from the guys behind them, who are sort of cut off on their own in this space that's kind of carved out by the shield and the banner and this area here. It creates a good creates a good compositional balance, because you can clearly see these guys. They're not obscured by anything, and you can clearly see these guys, but it also sort of creates the feeling that they're a little bit separate from each other, which I think wasn't the intention. I would have liked to have one or two more soldiers a little bit closer to the other ones running behind them, even if that would have been a little bit more busy in the compositional work. But again, the light is doing the work of informing us, like, who is in front of the image. Then we have Heart of the Fluffed. which is the most adorable win game card you have ever seen in your life. Heart of the Fluffed is so good. It's so good. I haven't gotten to play it yet, because when I get far enough for this card to be useful, my Poros have usually basically won the game by themselves. But this fucking card is so cool. Oh, Poro herding is something about how it doesn't give any gold, so it's the dream of Runeterra. Because means you are set for life and don't have to worry about money or food. Yeah, I agree with you, Phoenixu. Again, I don't know what that currency is, but thank you very much for it. But yeah, I love the Fluffed of Poros, because that's adorable. And I also, as a card, you play this, you combine all your Poros into a Fluffed of Poros. Boom. And then when that dies, you summon a Fluffed of Poros again. You summon the Heart of the Fluffed again. So long as you have Poros in your hand, you can keep doing it. It's so fucking powerful for 5 mana. It's crazy. Anyway, the artwork. Again, you can see the composition doing the job of like highlighting the leader Poro with the horns and the sword in the front of everything else, and then you can see the horde of Poros charging behind it, including some Poros we know, like the mighty Poro there, which is Braum's faithful companion. And these Poros operating a bow. It's like, it's the most adorable way to die ever. And then we have the Poro Fluffed, which just abandons all pretenses of warfare and becomes stupidly adorable instead. Look at that little squishy fluff cake! Look at it! It squishes out in the snow because it landed face first down into it. Look at that! That's adorable. This is the best way to die. It's the best way to die. Lysandra. Nope, she's not in the game. Not yet, anyway. So, Rime Tusk Shaman. There's a couple of interesting things going on here. Like, first of all, this is the focus of the image. It's her hand casting that snow magic, whatever it is. Like, that's the actual first thing that you see. Then the next thing you see is her face, where the eyes are all white, which is generally a bad sign. Like, if someone is staring at you with eyes that look like that, you might be about to die. And then there's the staff cutting the image in half, which I think is quite nice. Like, that creates a kind of... It creates the sense that she's taking over the image, really. Like, the separation doesn't do much compositionally, but it does give her dominance over the space itself. And then there's her cloak billowing up behind her. And the thing I like about it is that because it's so blurry and because it's so under-rendered, you kind of get the sense of, is that a cloak or is that a giant bear or a monster? Is that a creature or a cloak behind it? Like, what is that? That uncertainty I like. I like that little moment of, hey, that's just her cloak, right? It's just her cloak, right? 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 That's a good thing to bring into something where a character is clearly casting some kind of disorienting magic at you. She's also one of the few cards that is like doing something directly at the viewer like that. So here we have a Scar Maiden, which I think is a unscarred Battle Reaver that's been scarred, and then she gets to ride a big thing. Oh, it's Chile and Peso. Oh, Phoenix, thank you. I hope someday we get to see how Cyrilda and Avarosa looked. Yeah, I wanted it in Legends, but it didn't happen, it seems. Not yet, anyway. I would expect them to add Cyrilda and Avarosa to the game at some point, probably. Let's see. Hi, Skyn. Are there any champs you're really interested in seeing appear, whether for potential mechanics or new art? Not as such, no. I think there's a pretty good balance of champions for each region so far. So I can't really think of any that I would especially want. I want Teemo to disappear. I can tell you that. Anyway, composition. Again, this one is a little bit more chaotic because, again, like with a lot of the images where there's a rider in the image, the rider is kind of only half of the character. Any regions you want added, Bilgewater, obviously. Like, the pig is sort of half of the character, and I kind of like that. I kind of like that the mount gets to be part of the character as well. And I also like that she's kind of standing up in the saddle. Like, she's not sitting down, she's not resting, she's standing up, she's ready for combat. I don't know how she's standing up, because she doesn't have any stirrups, but apparently, like, she's got thigh strength for days. So, let's see, yeah. Like, the lighting of the fire is doing a good job of kind of highlighting what's going on here. This is clearly a raid that's happening, that she's joining in on. I like that the pig also has a little bit of a scar over it. So you can kind of see, yeah, okay, this thing has been in combat as well. Outside of that, nothing very interesting about this picture. I think, like, again, she's very thin, especially as a Freljordian. I might have liked to see her be a little thicker around the waist, just for survival purposes, but yeah, whatever. And here we have definitely not Trundle. It's definitely not Trundle, because he's got 2 clubs instead of an ice club, so yeah. But yeah, it's an ice troll. As a character design, I'm a little troubled by, like, this thing looking sort of vaguely, like, are they patterning them vaguely after Native Americans? Like, because that would cause some, like, for First Nations, that would cause some trouble. But I don't necessarily think so. It's just the general barbarian iconography that kind of always troubles me, like savage races wearing skulls and stuff. Like, it's old colonialist stereotypes, but most people don't know that, so it's like, how much harm does it really do? I don't know. Compositionally, this is quite good. The light is behind him, as usual. Like, the light is doing the job of highlighting him. And then the flying bodies around him create, like, the space for him to exist in. Like, where he can control the space and be dominant. And good lord, did he dominate all these poor suckers. Like, clearly that slam has some power behind it. Other than that, not a lot of interesting stuff to say about it. I've always liked the contrast between red hair and blue skin. Like, that works really well for the trolls as a character group in general. Again, more red mountains, like pink shades and, like, morning light over the Freljordian steppes that I quite like. I also like that these guys are just, like, a little intimidating now. It's not like the Elnooks we were looking at before. These are like bisons that have formed a circle around their calves. Like, the calves are adorable. Look at those little fuckers. But these guys are also like, yeah, we're not gonna kill ya unless you come too close. Like, this is threatening. Like, this is... We're not coming after you, but you better not come closer. I'm just saying. Like, if you were out on the steps and you saw that staring you down, you'd be careful about what you were gonna do next. Let's see. Alpha Wildclaw. Oh, that's what he was riding. I think that's what Scarthane Stefan was riding. It was one of those, because it had 6 limbs as well. I don't know where this red light is coming from. That's the only thing that kind of bothers me a little bit about this scene, is like, what is that red light? Is that fire? Why is there fire? Did he set the fire? I can't really tell. It serves its purpose in that it gives very dramatic lighting to this big, angry, tree-destroying cat that's gonna kill that guy a lot. But it's a little bit of a betrayal of the scene, I feel like, to have that glowing red, almost neon-looking light. That kind of doesn't fit the scene. It's a nice contrast with the greenish hues of the background, but it's like, it feels too unnatural in a scene that really should be, like, terror at night-like. But yeah, this guy's good. Like, I like his pose. He's pulling out his last arrow. Like, I like that little storytelling detail that he's only got 1 arrow left. He's pulling it out now, and after that, it's like, and you can see that several arrows have already not done very much to this thing. Like, those arrows didn't bother it that much, so good luck with that one, fella. And also, compositionally, there's a V. You can see the V shape being generated by the cat going one way and him going the other way. That's a really good composition for, like, a chase, when someone is dodging someone else. That's a really good way to show that. Then we have this hottie. Like, look at this babe. Damn. She's on fire. Like, or rather more specifically, she's setting fires. Again, boob plate, I'm a little bit like, why? Why is that? Why? You could just wear leather. Or, like, why would you? Okay, fine. Whatever. But the rest of her character design is excellent. Like, I really do like the way that, like, most of her armor design is created. And most of how she's designed. It really does communicate the fact that she's living in a really cold environment where you have to fight to stay alive. I love the scars. Like, the scars tell the story of someone who has had to fight to stay alive their entire life. I like the streak of white through her hair, because again, that's the kind of thing that kind of indicates, oh, this is someone who's been through some trauma, or something that's your son calls me mommy too. Oh, now. Hold your kinks, my friends. I mean, maybe don't say all of them out loud in chat, but, you know, indulge in them otherwise. I like the rendering on the fire here. Like, this fire right here is more like what I thought the fire should be for the Battlesmith, if you remember all the way back in the Demacian section. Because, like, this is more rendered out. This stands in beautiful contrast to the snowy landscape behind her. And I like that her face is being lit up from below by, like, the fire of war that she is literally put to this poor village right there. Like, compositionally, that's quite good. And I also like that she's dominating the image by, like, literally just cutting it in half, by standing straight through it. She's the center of this image, and everything else is background to her flaming vengeance, basically. Now, they who endure. I think a few people have lost to these guys already, because they are bastards. They are absolute bastards. Now, these are apparently the monsters that old Björg unfortunately saw when he got traumatized and turned crazy. And there's a bunch of theories out there about exactly what they are. They seem to have lasers in their eyes, so people are thinking void creatures. But it's also not like... They also don't look that much like void creatures. They seem to be patterned after... Like, if you go on Universe, you can find some concept art of what the Frozen Watchers were originally supposed to look like, basically. And it was something like this, but then the Frozen Watchers were changed to be void creatures, and now it's not really clear. Are these just void creatures wandering around in the Freljord? Is that it? Because void doesn't want to wander around. The void wants to consume everything, so... I don't know. But yeah, here again, old Björg getting himself into trouble, finding an ancient Yeti frozen in the snow. And here again, the composition is excellent. You can see how the ice that the Yeti is frozen into does the job of kind of outlining it, of like giving it a space to occupy, but also at the same time, by everything that's not frozen in ice on this side gives Björg a space to occupy. And you can see the bright light that frames him as well, that's coming in from behind the Yeti and illuminating him. And that sense of scale between this tiny little man and this very big angry Yeti is just really good. Like, it's really nicely done. And here you can see what happens to poor old Björk. Once the Yetis break free of the ice. And I love the sense of speed here. Like, I love like, you can see the composition is aiding in the sense of speed by giving us lots of momentum, like lots of things that pull the eyes in the direction of the perspective. And then, of course, there's the motion blur, like doing a lot of the work of making things seem like they're moving fast. And I just like that. Like, that's just it's a good composition. You get a good sense of the scale between the two, the poor Björk and the giant Yeti chasing him down. And then we have She Who Wanders. And this may be my favorite Freljord card for one reason only. That perspective. Like, that sense of scale. Here comes a thing that looks like a giraffe, but it's the size of a skyscraper, looking down at you from its head up in the clouds. This unthinkably large, foreign thing that doesn't make any sense as a creature because it doesn't have a face, it doesn't have a mouth, it can't breathe. How does it eat? All there is this gaping hole in the world where lightning death comes out of, and then there's tiny little Björg standing here on this little outcropping of rock. Like, even the world itself, like even the trees and the ground itself looks tiny in comparison to the sheer scope and size of this thing. And you can kind of see how the whole composition is like, everything leads up to the top here. Everything leads up to its face and that terrifying glowing eye. And like, I just love the sense of scale in this picture. I love the sense of scale. It's so impressive. It's kind of breathtaking and scary when you look at it. Like, when you really try and empathize with how he's feeling, you start to feel very, very small. And that's what good art is supposed to do. Good art is supposed to make you feel like you're in the picture a little bit. Just a little bit. You're supposed to just have that hint of understanding. And this does the job brilliantly. I love it. Let's see. Are there any spells in the Freljord that summon something that I should take a look at? Nope, I don't think so. Read the description. Yeah, I know. I've read that before. I've watched the Necrit video. So, I'm going to take one last break. Then I'm going to come back. Then we're finally going to do Ionia. And we're going to be done. We're going to be done. And I will have done it like I said I would. And it will only have taken me about 7 hours plus a bit. See you in a moment.